In this episode of Test Gear Tuesday, we're going to look at my GWInstek GRG-450 Bravo. It is a RF generator, an analog RF generator, and you probably have seen this or one very, very similar to this, and you've wondered, gee, are they the same device? The answer to that is pretty much yes. Yes, they are. There will be some differences. Some will have crystals, some do not. There are provisions for crystals, some do not. Some have provisions for frequency counters, others do not. The word on the street is GWInstek is the original designers of this device, of this look, and then they farmed them out and rebadged for other manufacturers such as Syncor, BK Precision, Leader, etc., etc. And later on we will find some evidence that will back that theory up, that yes, that is a very possible a true statement. And for those that are unfamiliar with what this device does, this is a RF signal generator that helps you work on your radios. In my instance, I use this to align the IF of my AM and FM radios. I used it to also tune up or adjust the radios, get them on calibration as far as frequency and dial point, etc. This device I've actually used for about 4 years or so, and it's been a fantastic device. I've actually had no real issues with it. As far as what it does well. I haven't really experienced any major drift off of it. You fire it up, let it warm up for about 15 minutes or so, and it's pretty rock stable. It's pretty stable once you fire it up, but the more you let it warm up, the better it is. As far as drifting, it's probably going to drift, within a couple of kcs of its center frequency. So it's really not too bad, and it's really nothing that you want to use as target practice. It is a piece of machinery that I definitely do recommend for those that either don't have deep pockets or just getting into the hobby of electronics, or you just really don't need much. This device would be perfect for that Synopsis. This particular device has 6 bands, and it covers a frequency from 100 kilocycles or kilohertz all the way up to 150 megahertz or megacycles, depending on what time frame in time you live. Now, this also will cover all the way up to 450 megahertz in harmonics. The previous frequencies I mentioned are fundamentals. However, it will cover higher in frequency, and it will cover lower in frequency. You just have to play with harmonics, and that's above the scope of this video. There are plenty of other video and documentation on the interweb that you could find that'll teach you about harmonics. Fairly simple. This device has a really large knob that I find fairly easy to turn. There's no issues. And as far as getting it to the frequency you want, there is no fine tune on this device. It's purely coarse, but it's not too bad. Once you get used to the device, you find that it is fairly easy to get it to the frequency of desire. All the way down to the 3rd digit, not a problem. Over here we have our band selector. It takes us through A through F, and that goes through the myriad of bands that are seen over here. And so you just go A band, and now you know where you're dialing up. Down here we have our power switch. It's a simple on-off that has the ball bearing action to it. Really nice switch. And then we have our LED that lets us know that yes, it is turned on. This switch right here is for our internal and external modulation. When you have it on internal modulation, it gives you a 1000 kilohertz or 1000 kilocycle sine wave signal, which is then injected either out through this port here or out through the RF. So if you have this injected into the antenna of an FM radio or into the IF section of your radio, you will then hear the audio being produced through your loudspeaker. if you switch it over to the external spot, then you can port in a external tone. So if you needed something other than 1000 kilohertz, let's say you needed 400 kilohertz, or whatever frequency spectrum you need, 20 to 20,000, you just pipe it in through here, through your external audio generator, and then it will be ported out through the RF output, again, across your device under test. This control right here is your modulation gain control for your modulation. Regardless if you have control over your external audio generator or not, you can control it right here, not a problem. This next control right here controls your RF level. So once you have this connected into your radio, you can adjust the gain high to low, tailor it for your needs. And this is not only a rotatable switch, which you can't see because my hand's in the way, but it's also a rotatable and pull out. You pull it out for your low section, and then you push it back in for your high section of RF. This port right here is your RF output. This is connected to your device under test. And then over here we have our frequency monitor, and this is really cool because it makes this dial obsolete. You plug this into your frequency counter, and this just becomes eye candy. Now, this dial right here on my particular device, and probably on most analog devices, it's probably not going to be 100% spot on. That's just the way it is. This is fairly close to being spot on, but it is slightly off. And once you plug in the frequency counter, again, this is just for visual reference about where you're at. Most of the time I really don't pay attention to it because I do have it plugged into a frequency counter, and I pay attention to the frequency counter instead. On the top here we have a really nice nylon or plastic, I think it's nylon, carrying handle, and it's definitely thick enough to support the weight of this device with no issues. On either side we have absolutely nothing, and on the back we have our stickers, and then our standard EIC, I believe it is, power cable port. Now this is your standard computer 3-prong port, so if you don't have one, definitely go rob one off of your kid's computer. They won't know the difference. Let them worry about that. Let them figure it out. You at least will have a cable to carry on. On the bottom we have feet. Yes, we do. We got 4 nice large feet, which supports the device comfortably, as well as keep the device in place. Now with this device I find that the weight is nice and perfect. I've never had a issue of the device moving on me at all, sliding backwards or whatever. Definitely can control it comfortably with a reasonable amount of pressure, and it stayed put on my painted shelves. Here on the towel, well, it's still pretty good. You put some pressure on it, yes, you're going to move it, not a problem. And I just pulled the face out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section. Now to remove this, I went ahead, as you just saw, I removed the 4 screws to move on. We have a screw up top here in the center. We have a screw down here on the bottom, and on the back we have the 2 screws right here that go to the EIC. Once you have that, then you can just simply push on that and the face will come right out. The one note about the case is really nice and solid metal. I should have brought my gauge over here and I would have measured it. Definitely a good piece of metal. It's not lightweight, not flimsy. It is not a beer can at all. And here's a look at the internals. Now right away you're going to see this big mess right here. And what these are bobbins. These are spools of bobbins for your sewing machine. So when you need to make a repair on some kind of fabric, then you just come and grab these. And as you see, you definitely have a plethora of thread. Of course, I'm being silly. That's not the case. what that really is. These are the coils for each band that you select on the front. The smaller band, of course, is going to be the highest frequency, the highest band, and then the more thicker coil will be for your lower band. Makes sense. Higher frequency, less wire. Lower frequency, more wire. Now, the one bad thing about this that I do not like, as I mentioned a moment ago, that it does have, it is slightly off frequency. And the way how you calibrate this device is you have to unmelt, heat up this wax, and then you're able to move these coils back and forth and then calibrate it. As I stated before, this is really not that far off frequency, not enough for me to worry about moving these coils back and forth. Be my luck, I'll end up knocking it completely out of frequency, a lot worse than it is. So again, frequency counter I'm fat and happy with. Component wise, this is all over-the-counter components. No SMD funny business here. Now this device came out roughly about 1992-ish, maybe 93, somewhere in that time frame. And in order to remove this section here, you have to tear off the faceplate, peel this sticker off here, remove these knobs, and then once you have this sticker removed, then you have access to these terminals here, which becomes a pain. So all I've done to this device is just ran some Keg contact cleaner, deoxit, and clean this up. I've never had an issue with this. Like I said, I've been running it for about 3-4 years or so. Never had an issue. I just recently cleaned this up though. On the side here in the power supply section, as I stated earlier, it would become obvious that this is was used with other products. Here you see a BK-2005F number right below the GRG-373-4H. So the BK is definitely BK Precision. So a telltale sign that yes, the word on the street is very plausibly correct. Power supply is wired up for both 120 and 220, and it just how you move this plug right here. These plugs will dictate how what circuit, what voltage will run this device. And here's our really nice ball bearing clicky switch right there. Really not much to see in here, really not much, mainly because you can't really access it very well. I went ahead and reassembled the device, and I've got it hooked up to the oscope, and I've got it hooked up to a frequency counter. That way you can get an idea of what this looks like and how easy it is to work. So right now you see that we are at 163 kilohertz, and as you dial in, you see that that's a really good looking sine wave. And then change to your other band. So if we wanted to go to 455 kilohertz for our AM IF, let's see how easy that is. So there you go. Without a fine control, that's pretty decent, I think. And so you'd sit there, and now you're able to inject that into your AM radio, and tweak and peak, not a problem. 10.7. And so there's your 10.7. So you see it's fairly easy to dial in without much pain. Since I've upgraded to this synthesized RF signal generator, I have decommissioned this one, but it's still a very, very capable device. Definitely a device that should garner respect in its field. And then if we dial up, keep in mind this is a 100 kilocycle scope. So we'll dial in. It's 152 megs right there. And as you see, the wave pattern still looks fantastic. Again, as stated, this is a fantastic RF signal generator. I definitely would recommend one to anybody who needs one. I think you'd be very much fat and happy with it. And this will conclude this video. Thanks for watching. As always, I do appreciate it. We will catch you in the next one. As always, I appreciate you watching my videos. Okay, let's redo that. And this will conclude Test Gear Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate your viewership. As always, have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you in the next video. Now let's do another take on that. Let's do take 3. And this will conclude this, take 4. And this will conclude this. And now we bring close to Test Gear Tuesday.